Hi and welcome to the Beer Temple. I am Chris Quinn and we have an interesting concept for the show today and what I believe will prove to be an interesting beer. Get to that in just a second. I wanted to do my comment of the show. It's been a little while since we had this. This is from the Creek show that we did, one of the very first shows that we taped. And this comes from Reliable Hosting Services. As a website possessor, I think the written content here is real superb. Appreciate it for your efforts. Cheap website hosting, web hosting. So that's a pretty good comment. Okay, moving on now that we've got that out of the way. This beer, like I said, the show is a little bit of an interesting concept, kind of a throwback to the very first episode we ever did. To those of you who have been watching since episode 1 or have dipped back to some of the previous episodes, well, first and foremost, thank you very much. I always appreciate you guys doing that. And second, you may remember episode 1 was about inspiration. I thought that was a fitting topic for the very first show that I did. And you know, obviously I'd been inspired to start a beer video podcast, so I picked a beer that had inspired a lot of other beers, and that beer was Orval, the Trappist beer Orval. And I had Orval and several beers that had been inspired by it. Well, since then, there's been another Orval-inspired beer, so I figured I should now have that beer on. What I've got here is the Rayon Vert by Green Flash out of San Diego, California. And kind of an interesting story behind this beer. What Green Flash did was, as they put it, challenge their brewmasters to think in the way that a Belgian brewer might pre-World War II, I believe they said. And they didn't say specifically that they were inspired by Orval, but kind of what they said was, we wanted to do, you know, if Green Flash were to only brew a single beer, what beer would we brew? If we threw away every other beer and only did one, and we wanted that beer to embody Green Flash, that's what we want you guys to brew. And they're using Brettanomyces, which is a wild strain of yeast in this beer, and they're also dry hopping this beer. So while they're not saying that it was inspired by Orval, they are saying it was inspired by Abbey or Trappist beers. And there's only one Trappist beer out there there's only one Trappist Abbey out there who only brews a single beer that has Brettanomyces or that dry hops their beer. And that is, that is Orval. Not sure about the dry hopping part. I'm pretty certain Orval is the only one that dry hops. I'm very sure that they're the only ones who only have a single beer and also who use Brettanomyces. So this is Green Flash's take on Orval. You know, their version of it. Again, like I said in episode 1, these aren't beers that are trying to copy Orval, they're just being inspired by them. And it's really amazing if you look out there how many beers have been inspired by Orval. It's really a brewer's beer. A lot of brewers consider Orval to be one of, if not the best beer in the world. So Orval it's interesting, and I'm going to put up my little disclaimer here. I've already shot this show once. I actually shot it outside on the porch. It was a beautiful day. We're kind of going through a heat wave here in Chicago. And I had a little breast pocket here, and I took my little remote control and my phone, actually. So I read the comment, different comment, I don't remember what it was. I stuck it here, and then I put this in here, and at one point I leaned over and it hit the stop button, and I was just talking and talking, and I missed about a third of the show. So rather than try to throw it together piecemeal, I figured I'd just do the whole thing. So if I'm not completely surprised, don't be shocked, but I'll talk you through a little bit of what I was expecting from the beer and then what I ended up getting. So this is Green Flash's take on like an Orval beer. Green Flash is known really for those big West Coast American hop-driven beers. Big citrus tropical hops. So what was I expecting? I was expecting kind of a lighter, basically an IPA or a pale ale with some Brettanomyces character. Brettanomyces tends to give a little bit of a barnyard funk, sometimes it's called horse blanket type of qualities to a beer. And it also allows you to age a beer and have that beer progress for a very long time. And the addition of the dry hopping means dry hopping fades over time. So since this is dry hopped and uses Brettanomyces, if you get it very fresh, then that means it's going to have a lot of hop character and very little Brettanomyces character. Brettanomyces works very slow, like I said. If you have an older version, you're going to see the hops drop off and the Brettanomyces show itself much, much more. In fact, the brewer said, we have no idea how this is going to taste, but we're interested to see, we're excited to see what it's going to be like. Green Flash does not date their bottles in any way. This beer was first released last November, so let's assume that this is from the first batch. I don't think it is, but we'll just assume. It doesn't really affect the beer too much. It's just going to be an ever-evolving beer. So I was expecting a beer that was going to be basically a West Coast style hoppy beer that had a little bit of Brett character. So what do I have here? Hazy beer, clearly unfiltered, really nice golden orange color, and a lot of carbonation. If you'll notice when I first poured it how much head there was there. And it's still not going anywhere. There's still a lot of fluffy suds on the top, really pillowy looking, which is very much the style. Belgian beers are one of the most carbonated, well, across the board, they're generally very carbonated Belgian beers. There are exceptions to everything, but in general. So let's take a look at the beer, or let's take a sniff of the beer. Okay, so you are getting certainly a lot of the Brettanomyces. You're getting a little bit of like a barnyard, earthy, almost like a hay-like quality, but you're getting a lot of really nice fruit as well. Brettanomyces can lend itself to fruit, and I think that you're getting some really kind of like ripe nectarine, along with some hops of this, I think it's an American varietal, that lend itself very well to that. I don't know if it was by happenstance or if it's maybe just the hops that I'm smelling and not the bread. It's kind of hard to tell, but really nice. You can definitely tell that does have some of that wild yeast in there, but very subdued, very balanced. It's a nice kind of lovely floral orange blossom with some really earthy, almost like dirt qualities to it. Hay, like I said before. Just very, very floral. Really like sticking your well, if you kind of uprooted a flower and you still had kind of the dirt in your hands because you've been out in the garden, and then you like sniffed the flower, that's really what I'm getting, like the earth and the floral and a little bit of fruit as well. Very interesting smelling beer, and not what I was expecting. Well, I was expecting it this time, but not the first time when I tried it. All right. You do get that same kind of real floral character. You get some fruit as well. You're also, I'm getting this time a little bit of a metallic mouthfeel, which I did not get the first time. Not sure why that is. I'm pretty sensitive to metallic mouthfeel, to metallic flavors as well in beers. I pick them up when a lot of other people don't. You know, everyone's palate's different. There's things that I really don't pick up well. I think I said in the rye episode that rye is something that really kind of I don't get unless it's pretty heavy-handed. But here I'm getting a little bit of metal, which is kind of weird. But lovely earth character, high carbonation, and a good amount of bitterness. One thing I will say about this is Green Flash has put their West Coast stamp on this beer in that regard. It is considerably more bitter than I would expect an Orval to be, or really any of the Trappist ales. There are Belgian beers that are quite hoppy, but yeah, but a very nice clean bitterness and subdued, balanced beer with a lot going on here. Yeah, really nice. I have to say, if this was the only beer that Green Flash made, I'm glad that they do make other beers, but if this was the only one, hey, it's a pretty good one. Really delicious, great for the summertime, nice and crisp, refreshing, a lot going on, like I said before, and would go well with a lot of food. Certainly anything a little bit gamey, maybe like lighter game meats, as well as even some maybe more oily or pungent fishes, or even like a salad, honestly, with some good kind of earthy, maybe mushrooms in it as well. Anything that could kind of play up to some of that funkiness and the floral aspects. Very nice beer. I'm going to go pretty high with this beer. I'm going to go 94 with this beer. Really very good. And one that I am now going to try to go out and try to get it as fresh as I can, and also maybe put some away in my cellar and see what this tastes like in a couple years. Who knows how that Brettanomyces is going to kind of play with the beer and affect the elements and kind of just make it its own new thing. Very cool, definitely worthy of the other beers that I had in episode 1 that were other Orval inspired beers, and a great beer that I have been looking forward to trying, at least I was originally when I shot this episode, and really lived up to expectations and truly exceeded these expectations. If you do get Green Flash beers in your neck of the woods, they do distribute fairly widely. I would recommend picking up this beer, the Rayon Vert by Green Flash. So there you have it, guys. As always, thank you so much for not only watching, but keeping the comments coming and emailing me and, you know, shooting me little tweets and stuff on Twitter. I really appreciate it, and it's really cool of you guys. So thank you very, very much. And until next time, I've got some beer to drink, and hopefully you do too.